watching the technology, live streaming, or broadcasting of this media availability. We are here to make an announcement that is both exciting and groundbreaking for our league. I am delighted to let you know that the National Hockey League has entered into our first league-wide sports betting partnership, and we've done so with a company that in many ways is already part of the NHL family. Today, the NHL and MGM are proud to announce that we've entered into a multi-year partnership that designates MGM as an official gaming partner of the NHL, as well as an official resort destination of the NHL. This strategic alliance will enable MGM to have access to the NHL's intellectual property, including our league and 31-team logos for use in marketing and promotion, and to have access to advanced game data, which is being developed as we speak. In addition, by combining the league's robust database with MGM's M-Life rewards program, this partnership will provide NHL fans with an opportunity to enjoy once-in-a-lifetime experiences at league tentpole events. Of course, as I've previously mentioned, working together is not new for us. As part owner of the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, home of our Vegas Golden Knights, MGM has hosted major NHL events, including the NHL Awards and last year's Stanley Cup Final. So today, we enter a new phase in our relationship, and it's going to be exciting to see where we go together. With that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to MGM's resort chairman and a good friend, Jim Murin.
Well, thank you, Gary. I think you know how much I admire you and what you have accomplished with the NHL. And I know you know how excited I am about being here today. Our love affair with hockey began over 20 years ago. It was then in 1997 that Mr. Anschutz brought the LA Kings to Las Vegas. And for the next 20-odd years, we hosted Frozen Fury at the MGM. It was our relationship with Mr. Anschutz and AEG that formed the basis of a partnership that we formed back in 2012, when AEG and MGM scoured the globe looking for the best ideas to build an arena. And we found those great ideas and formed that partnership and broke ground on T-Mobile back in 2014. It was that year that the Commissioner and I sat down in these very offices, and the Commissioner, you had a very pointed question. And I don't know if you guys know this, but he can be a little intense sometimes. And he said, look, would Las Vegas, would the local community support a hockey franchise? And I thought so. I didn't know for sure. I said, I'll get back to you. And the MGM employees got to work. We went to schools and club hockey programs, and we contributed to the fact that we sold thousands upon thousands of season tickets. And of course, the storybook season of the Golden Knights last year. And because of that, we saw a lot, the NHL did and MGM, about hockey in the desert. And we saw that in many cases, 30, 40, 50% of the fans were fans of the visiting team. We saw the kind of engagement that we could create together. We saw the excitement. We saw the potential of a partnership with the NHL. So today was a natural extension, really, of that journey. And think about the idea that now we can communicate to those great 2.3 million fans of the NHL's growing database and help our fan base and our loyalty program with 31 million members in our M-Life program. Fan engagement, sports alignment is really one of the pillars of this relationship. The idea of puck and play, which the Commissioner and I have talked about, is incredibly exciting, innovative, first of its kind, in providing yet more opportunities for fans to enjoy the game that they love. But also in that first meeting we talked about integrity, responsible gaming, and the idea that first and foremost, integrity had to be a pillar of a relationship. And I hope the Commissioner believes, as he did then, that MGM has tried at every step of the way to be a leader in that area. We take pride in our leadership in responsible gaming. And so for the NHL fans, for the fans of sports and entertainment, for the fans of the NHL and MGM, this is indeed a historic day, and I couldn't be more proud than to be here today with the Commissioner of the NHL. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to questions, so please state your name and outlet and wait for the mic.
Darren Ravel from ESPN. Congratulations, guys. Gary, you said a partner. Is the sponsorship exclusive?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's the first, and obviously, because of our long-standing relationship and the number of things we've done together, we were most comfortable moving forward together, MGM and the NHL, at this point in time.
And then I also ask, the data is obviously not exclusive as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. One more question. In a way, at least publicly, you have kind of been against this. It was reported last year that you asked Jim to take the Knights, originally the Knights, off the board at the Monte Carlo in New York. And, you know, in a deposition you said in 2012, I know that was 6 years ago, that it just didn't match with the game and kind of opposed the family-friendly atmosphere you're looking for. What changed?
The Supreme Court. And obviously, and I think many of you know this, I was integrally involved in the passage of PASPA 25 plus years ago. But the fact of the matter is the world has changed. The way people consume sports has changed. And frankly, whatever views anybody had a year ago have been changed by the fact that the Supreme Court ruled on PASPA, and sports betting, subject to state enactment, has found a new road and a new life. And I believe that there was an opportunity here, since it was happening anyway, but more importantly, to the extent this may provide a vehicle for more fan engagement and connectivity to the game, it's something that we had to embrace. Our methodology, I think, has been a little bit different, because instead of seeking legislation either at the federal level or even at the state level, our approach has been to work directly with the industry, and it was easiest, most sensible for us to start with somebody who was already a partner and somebody we already had a working relationship with, namely MGM.
And if I could add that the Commissioner and I did talk about this, and the Commissioner, first and foremost, was concerned about the integrity of the game, the league and the game. He wanted to ensure that we felt the same way. So those, I thought, were really good, candid discussions to have. And like everything in life, it takes time to develop trust and relationships, and I believe we've done that with the NHL.
I think just because a lot of terms get thrown around, like integrity fees and like, which is something we've never pursued, I never worried, and I don't worry about the integrity of our game. The integrity of our game has been strong throughout a period where virtually all of the betting has been not through legal sports books. But my view was we were the first team, first league in Las Vegas, and we all needed to get a comfort level as to how it was going to work. But we've been comfortable from the outset. But again, the integrity that we talk about is integrity in a relationship, integrity as it relates to their sports book, but I've never expressed an issue about the integrity of our game and our players, for which I have total confidence.
Hi, Joe Lemire with Sport Techie with a question for the Commissioner. You mentioned the advanced game data. What is the status of either partnering with or developing a tracking system, and what will be included in this relationship?
The enhanced data is, a lot of the data in our game and our most games is static, and you pick it up at any time, particularly if you want to bet on it. It's finite, it's concrete, it's definitive, particularly at the end of a game. The data that we're looking at is real-time data that doesn't exist currently. We've been working, actually involved in investing in the process of inventing it. We've tested it. We have other tests planned for later in the season. We've used it in some form or another, either in the World Cup or in All-Star games, and we're anticipating that it should be ready for prime time for next season.
Dennis Gorman from AP. You've mentioned the integrity aspect. Are there mechanisms in place in this deal to protect the integrity of the game?
We monitor all of the games anyway through third-party resources. We've watched what goes on, whether or not betting lines shift and the like, which is anybody who's involved in a business that there's betting on would do. So it hasn't been an issue, and we don't anticipate it being an issue. The concerns that others may have aren't applicable to our game.
Eric Chemi, CNBC, a question for Commissioner Bettman. So the money that you're getting from MGM and maybe as other casinos get on board, is this money that would, let's say, increase the salary cap? Would players be seeing some of this in their pockets?
It is revenue that's part of hockey-related revenues, so the players will share in it 50-50. This is not revenue, to be clear, that comes out of the take. Okay, this is fixed revenue that is irrelevant or separate and apart from any betting that actually goes on. We're not getting a piece of the book.
Commissioner Matt Carey, Gambling Compliance. Question, does this deal...
Ask Jim a question.
You're doing fine, man.
It comes in all the way from Las Vegas.
No, it's good. It's good.
That's easy for you to
I got
say.
a couple questions for you, too.
Well, it might be able to handle part of this.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
Does this deal include the potential for MGM to install physical wagering stations in arenas? And what is the league's position on individual teams potentially reaching agreements?
Well, that's a very good question. So let's make clear a couple of things. There can be opportunities in a building in a segregated area for there to be a sponsored lounge or of the sort, but to the extent that there's mobile apps where people can bet from their seats, that question really begs the notion that somehow you can segregate it. When you sit in a seat watching an event in Las Vegas at T-Mobile, you can use any of a number. Preferably you'll use MGM's right now app, or even in New Jersey. So the fact is, whether or not there's a segregated area that happens to be a lounge that's sponsored doesn't distinguish it from a lot of other areas that already exist in arenas. It's more about branding than anything else. Does anybody have a question for Jim? Oh, thank you.
Hi, Bob Williams from Sport Business International. MGM has a deal with the NBA. Did this partnership follow that, or were you already in talks beforehand?
We were in talks with the NHL from the very beginning, and the deals are different deals. We're not getting into all the details of them. This is a very specific deal with the NHL, and it was a product of some really good discussions back and forth of what's collectively important to ourselves and to the league. And one of the aspects that the Commissioner mentioned earlier that I want to, well, first off, who hasn't seen the Golden Knights play? I mean, for gosh sakes. But if you've gone to a game at T-Mobile and you see at Toshiba Plaza or in the park the thousands upon thousands of fans of all ages, the question of whether or not we could provide a family-friendly environment has been answered. It was answered certainly last year. That's really what the focus of our conversation was between the Commissioner and myself. Could we create a healthy, productive, positive environment to enjoy hockey? And of course, we have at T-Mobile. And so working with what the NHL found important, what we found important, we created something that's very comprehensive, but at no point did we ever say, as the Commissioner said, it's exclusive. MGM believes in the free market. We believe that there are going to be winners and losers in sports betting. We intend to be the winner. We intend to be the winner because of our brands, because of our relationships, because of our analytics, because of our loyalty programs. We don't want to be the winner because someone else is boxed out of the opportunity. And we like to win on the ice or on the field or on the court, and that's what we hope to do.
And if the impression you get from what Jim just said is that this is broader than just sports betting, it is, which includes MGM's designation as an official resort destination for the NHL. This is a broad, encompassing relationship between two powerful brands.
Gary, you have a couple of teams that have sponsorships with outside sports books. Does this deal allow other teams to work
Yes.
out individual deals?
The way we've structured the framework for the league and the teams, not unlike television arrangements, there's a national component, and we provide for the ability of clubs to have a local component. So, and if you happen to be in a jurisdiction that has sports betting, your opportunities are going to be very great for the club in the local market.
Gary, a question from the Canadian reporter here.
Hi.
Given the fact that north of the border, of course, federally, they don't allow for single-game sports betting, does today's announcement have any implications as far as the franchises in Canada?
The answer to that is the clubs in Canada have been working with the lotteries who control gambling on a provincial basis, and I think that will continue. I know there have been a lot of discussions about going to single-game betting as opposed to parlay, which is what currently exists. And as the law evolves, you'll see our evolution in dealing with it, which is what we've done here in the United States. You know, a year ago, we wouldn't have been having this discussion, but the world changed, and we're adapting to it. And we've also had the experience of having the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas, and, you know, you see after we decided that Vegas presented a great opportunity and was a wonderful growing city with people who were interested in professional sports, other leagues started taking a look at it.
Hi. Alan Carita, New York Times. This question is for both of you guys. Would this be happening without the Golden Knights' super successful first season? And would you both say that exceeded expectations?
Well, I don't want to speak for the Commissioner, but I surely would have wanted this transaction to move forward without the Golden Knights. We built T-Mobile to be pro-ready, but to be very clear, we had no expectations of a pro hockey team at that time. We have always longed to bring content to Las Vegas. That dates back to our founder, Mr. Kirk Kerkorian, who always brought the big fights. We brought always the big sporting events, and that's in our DNA. So absolutely. Are we surprised with the Golden Knights? Who couldn't be surprised with the storybook season that they had? But the quality of the men that I've met, I've had the honor to meet, the hockey players that play for the Knights and in fact play in professional hockey are the highest quality individuals I've met in any sport. And so as ambassadors into our community, and particularly in a fairly uncertain time, the Knights have been a godsend to Las Vegas.
Particularly from last year. I agree with Jim. Let me just focus on a couple of other things. We certainly, in light of what the Supreme Court did and the decision and the way the world has changed vis-a-vis betting in sports, we would have been having this conversation. Would our arrangement have emerged as quickly as it did and be as encompassing as it is in the absence of the fact that we already had a relationship? Probably not, but we did have a relationship, and in the lead up to the Vegas Golden Knights, to the events of last October, which was a terrible tragedy in Las Vegas, and I think that the team played a part in helping the city heal, our relationship got closer, and we both organizationally and personally, had a relationship that we not only were comfortable in, we trusted each other, and we could relate to each other. As it relates to your question, were we surprised by the Golden Knights? I will say that as it relates to the on-ice performance, I think everyone knows we provided for a deeper expansion draft than we ever had before, and we expected the team to be competitive. The fact that they went to the Stanley Cup final was a little bit of a surprise. The fact that the team was successful in the community, incredibly so, was not a surprise. This was a city that we believed was ready to embrace NHL hockey, and at every step of the way, we were either proven right or vindicated in our belief in the city. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that Bill Foley created a great organization, and there was great support in the community, not just by the fans, but from organizations local to Vegas, such as MGM, and people like Jim, who embraced the vision.
Ian Thomas, Sports Business Journal.
Yes.
Gary, I have two questions for you.
One at a time.
All right, fair enough. Can you quantify the revenue opportunity for the league, at maybe at a league level, as you sort of step into this space?
You know, the AGA published something a week or so ago saying that the impact of sports betting would increase league revenues $200 to $300 million. Well, based on our overall revenues, that's not a be-all and end-all. To the extent that it can create more fan connectivity, more fan engagement, and even bring some new fans in, I think the impact that we will see from sports betting are more indirect, but all positive in that respect in terms of fan connectivity and fan base growth. Now, the second question.
Maybe this is for Jim as well.
Oh, good.
How granular would you like the player data to go in terms of data that you guys would use in your apps or in other sort of games? And Gary, what's been the conversation with the PA thus far in terms of using, you know, player skating speed or shot speed and things like that?
Well, I'll start. Data, excuse me, data is the key. The more data a player has, the better. And that data has to be trusted, it has to be specific, it has to be endorsed, it has to be real time. And we've seen the power of data outside the United States. You look at World Cup soccer, for example, in the UK or throughout Europe. In terms of the player experience, I'd have to echo what the commissioner said. We believe it's our responsibility to help the league, the teams, and the individual players build their individual brands. And that's the reason why I brought a WNBA team to Las Vegas and named them the Las Vegas Aces, to help elite athletes develop their individual brands. The more data you can have on an individual athlete, on his or her skills, the more connection a fan will have to that athlete and therefore build the brand equity of that athlete. So we believe fully in a wholesome accumulation of data, which is also why we do not support exclusive data. We want the data to be available to the world. We never sought an exclusive relationship with this league or any league, because we think the end game is to provide the best fan experience, whether you're a social bettor, for free, for cash bettor, or just love the game, and want to be a data junkie like I was growing up, you know, having to read the newspaper every morning to figure out what's going on my favorite players and my favorite teams. Now it's all digitized and available, and the more data, the better.
What I think is interesting from our standpoint is the fact that the data that we're in the process of inventing the mechanism to collect it, this is a process we've been involved with for years, and it wasn't initially our vision to develop it for sports betting. It was as a broadcast enhancement and as a second screen data collection device to bring fans closer to the game. As we've said, the amount of revenue that we're going to generate is secondary to the fan engagement, and in fact, the technology we're going to use to create the data we think we'll be using with our national broadcast partners, both in Canada and the U.S., and the regional broadcast partners, and on streaming digital platforms. So the fact that we may be in a position to create data that you can only get from us in real time is a plus in the sports betting environment. And the Players Association, and we have been in discussions throughout so that they understand what we're doing. And one of the benefits of us having a direct relationship as opposed to waiting for either federal or state legislation that may or may not come is we have the ability to have input exactly as to what's being bet on to make sure that we're comfortable with the types of bets that are being placed on what's taking place in the game. So all of this kind of came together, and again, the last point, it was the question before, any revenues that we generate from this, either directly or indirectly, go into hockey-related revenues, and players share 50%. So this is a collaborative effort across all platforms, but it's also an opportunity by us having a relationship that we have created directly with an important industry partner is what we think will enable us to move forward in a sensible way.
Darren Rowe with ESPN, one more question.
You still with ESPN from the last question?
I am.
That's good to know. I guess they thought it was a good question.
You never know. Anyway, so right now with the Devils, you'll be able to bet within the arena because it's in the state of New Jersey. Do you ever envision actual kiosks where you can bet?
Actually, as I said, you don't need them because of the mobile apps. Most of the betting that goes on now in Nevada and in New Jersey as well is going to be done on your phone. And unless you're going to confiscate people's phones as they come into the buildings, which we're not going to do because there are other uses for them, including data and video replay and other streamed elements of the game or other things you want to be doing while you're sitting there, including taking a picture and putting it on Instagram, that's just a fact of life. That's what has been unleashed with overturning PASPA, and we have to adjust to it.
For Gary and Jim, speaking about the player data aspect, will this deal lead to the league kind of creating an NFL-style injury report?
I don't know about that. Our players tend to play hurt, and I'm not sure that we have any interest in changing our reports. We're comfortable with the way things are because it's important for the well-being of our players. We don't want them targeted when they're playing injured. And obviously, we don't want them playing too injured because that's not good for them either.
Jackie Daly, Double G Sports.
Yes.
So now that there's the official resort sponsor, what changes, if any, does that mean for the resort itself? Jim.
Well, we're investing about $700 million all around T-Mobile right now. We take a property that used to be called Monte Carlo, and we brought in Seidel Group, and from here, from New York, we're doing a Nomad and a Park MGM product. We built a $100 million park outside of that, nice art collection. So we are improving the neighborhood because we own the neighborhood, and we want that fan engagement to be very, robust and as high quality an engagement as possible. So we're focusing a lot of our capital dollars in that general area between New York, Park MGM, Bellagio, Aria, to create connectivity. So when people come to Las Vegas to see their favorite hockey team play against the Golden Knights, we hope that they stay at one of our 10 resorts and go to T-Mobile from there.
And from a league standpoint, the relationship contemplates what we have in other major sponsorship relationships. So MGM has the right to use our collective trademarks for the clubs. They've run in the past year an ad for MGM properties that had some footage from an NHL game from the Vegas Golden Knights, which you don't get to do if you're not a league sponsor. They're going to merge their database with ours so that The M Life royalty program that they have can use the connectivity that we have with our fans to provide opportunities for fans to compete for, you know, tentpole event invitations sponsored by MGM. So in many ways, and this is why I said this is broader than just a sports betting relationship, this involves us having a major sponsorship with each other.
And I think it's worth noting that in Las Vegas, 70% of revenue is non-gaming. We're talking about sports betting, I guess, today, but really, we don't view ourselves as a betting company. We view ourselves as an entertainment company. 42,000 hotel rooms, millions of square feet of convention space, 3 arenas, dozens of theaters, food and beverage outlets, and so, and we know PR pretty well. So if you go to a Knights game, you get a sense of the energy around that, and working with the NHL globally, so we can help promote the NHL around the world, is something that we believe it's our responsibility to do as a partner.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Matthew Blittner, Official Report.
Yes.
To piggyback off Darren's previous question, it seems a lot of this is mainly focused on Vegas, but with the non-exclusivity factor, do you potentially see this going to places as well with like Atlantic City and building relationships there, like Darren said, with the Devils and potentially other cities and teams around there?
Well, this is an international sponsorship relationship, but a lot of the answer to your question will be determined by 2 factors: which states decide to legalize sports betting, and where MGM has properties.
And we have been, that's a good point, we've been focused on Las Vegas, but recall that we own Borgata in New Jersey. We own MGM Grand Detroit in Detroit. We own MGM National Harbor, which is like you can walk to a Caps game from our property. We just opened in MGM Springfield in Massachusetts. And so we feel that this is an important relationship around the world, and certainly one that we intend to maximize between the database of the NHL and the M Life database of MGM.
Okay, thank
Anybody
you.
else? Great. Now you can sign off.
Thank you, Commissioner Bettman, and thank you, Jim, and thank you to everyone here today. For those of you in the room, we'll be doing a photo op in a few minutes, so if you'd like to stick around for that, that would be great. And thank you.
Thank you very much.